So, it's good to see that everyone's really excited for the new Lord of the Rings show. Oh no, wait, they're not. Why I'm not as excited for Lord of the Rings of Power as I want to be. So, Lord of the Rings of Power comes out in about a week or so as I'm recording this video today. I'm currently recording this on the 20th of August, and House of the Dragon starts tomorrow, so I haven't seen that yet. But to be honest, at the moment, I'm more excited for House of the Dragon than I am Lord of the Rings of Power. And granted, that is because House of the Dragon starts tomorrow, but at the same time though, if you asked me that question a couple of months ago, I would have given the exact same answer. Because even though I was massively disappointed by the last season of Game of Thrones, I mean, who wasn't? But even though I was massively disappointed by the 8th and final season of Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon it excites me a bit more, because you watch the trailers for House of the Dragon and it looks like it takes place in the Game of Thrones world. It screams Game of Thrones. You can look at it and go, okay, I can tell this is a Game of Thrones prequel. But then when I watch the trailers for Lord of the Rings of Power, it doesn't look Lord of the Rings enough to me. Like, there's shots in the Lord of the Rings of Power trailers, which I really like and make me feel like Lord of the Rings. Like when the Balrog shows up in the latest Rings of Power trailer, like, oh wow, that makes it feel like Lord of the Rings. But then, like 3/4 of the shots and scenes in the Rings of Power trailers, though, don't make it feel like Lord of the Rings to me. And I think that's the biggest reason why I'm not as excited for the Rings of Power as I want to be. But just before I get into more reasons and I go more into detail about why I'm not excited for the Rings of Power as I want to be, I also want to say this. I am excited for it. I'm not one of these people online who are just so negative about the show, who are going to go into it with pitchforks, and at the same time though, who are criticising every little thing they see in terms of marketing for the Rings of Power. I've seen some things in terms of marketing, like the posters, some of the costume design, some of the cinematography, the shots in the trailer, which just get me really excited and make me want to watch the show. And also, I'm excited to see it though. Like, all these people online are saying that it's going to be bad, Rings of Power is going to be awful, it hasn't even started yet. I'm still going to watch it. And, you know, I'm not going to cover that up. Even though I'm not excited for it as I want to be, I'm still going to go and watch it. So I'm still excited to see it. I'm excited to see why it's going to be Lord of the Rings, because I don't know why it is yet, which I'll get onto a bit later, but I'm excited to see how this fits into the Lord of the Rings universe, if you will. I'm also excited to see what the story's going to be, because we've got kind of a taste of that, which I'll get onto a bit later in the video. We've got kind of a taste of that in our latest trailer for this show, and I'm also just excited to see where the money's been going into. Like, this is the most expensive TV show of all time. It's cost $250 million overall, which is ridiculous in my opinion, and I want to see where the money's been poured into. I want to see what the writing is like. I want to see what some of the production design is like. I want to see what the music is going to be like. I want to hear the soundtrack. I want to hear Ben McGreary's themes, and I also want to hear Howard Shore's main theme for this show, because Howard Shore did the music for the Hobbit movies, he did the music for the Lord of the Rings film as well. He won some Oscars for his scores for Lord of the Rings films, and I want to hear his main theme for this show as well. I want this show to be brilliant. I really do. And I am not one of these people online who want it to be bad just simply because it has diversity in there. No, the diversity in the show, in fact, is one of the things that excites me about it. I want to see how all these different ethnicities exist in the world of Middle-earth. And I want to see how a young, a Gladriel came to be this fantastic fighter. I want to see all these different things in this show. I don't care about gender, ethnicity or whatnot. I don't care about diversity. As long as it's written well, I know I'm going to love it, and that's what I want to see. I want to see the writing. I want to see how the characters are used. I want to hear about the story. I want to, hear the musical themes for this show. I'm excited to see it. There's things in it which I'm really, really excited to see. But at the same time, though, I am a bit worried about it. I've got to admit, I am a bit worried about this show. And I think, like I said before, the biggest reason I'm worried about it is just because it doesn't look Lord of the Rings enough to me. Like, I'm watching the trailers, and the trailers are not bad. Visually, some of the shots of the trailers are amazing. You can clearly tell where the money is going in the trailers. But at the same time, though, it it doesn't look like Lord of the Rings to me. And what I want to say here is that why does it have to be Lord of the Rings then? Why can't it be another fancy TV show? Why does this have to be Lord of the Rings? And why can't it just be something else? Like, because before, when you watch the House of the Dragon trailer, it screams Game of Thrones. I'm not getting that from the Rings of Power trailer, though. It's not screaming Lord of the Rings to me. And for me personally, I'm not the world's biggest fan of Lord of the Rings. I must admit, I've never read a Lord of the Rings book in my life. I've never read a Tolkien book in my life, to be honest. I read a couple of pages of The Hobbit back in, primary school, but I don't remember anything from it. I haven't read the Hobbit book either. And so, my introduction to Middle-earth was actually kind of through the first Hobbit movie. I know a lot of people don't like the Hobbit movies whatsoever, and that's completely understandable. It's all subjective as well. But personally, I don't care what anyone says. I unconditionally love all three Hobbit films. I think they're fantastic, and they got me into, well, the first Hobbit film anyway, the first Hobbit film got me back into Lord of the Rings films as well, because I never really used to like Lord of the Rings films when I was a kid. My family always did, so it would always be on around Christmas, because that's when we kind of watch it every year. But at the same time, though, I remember watching a bit of it when I was a kid. I remember watching the big battle of Minas Tirith, I think it is, in Return of the King. I haven't seen the film for a long while, by the way. But I watch it this Christmas, and maybe I'll be reviewing it on this channel. Maybe. We'll have to wait and see. But still, nonetheless, I remember watching that big battle with all the Oliphants and just the Riders Rohan. It was fantastic. And all the orcs and that big castle. If you've seen Lord of the Rings, you know what I mean. And clearly I've watched the film in a long while, but I just remember watching that big battle when I was a kid and being enthralled by it. But I don't remember watching much else from Lord of the Rings films when I was a kid. I really don't. I remember Treebeard as well from Two Towers. And so I've seen bits of the three Lord of the Rings films, but I hadn't watched them properly. Not until I watched the first Hobbit movie, because I was kind of forced to go and watch the first Hobbit movie, The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey, at the cinema, because I was not a Lord of the Rings fan, but the rest of my family were, so I was kind of forced to go to the cinema with them. And I remember sitting there about to watch The Hobbit, the first Hobbit movie in the cinema, and thinking to myself, well, it's going to be 3 hours, you'll get through it, it might be the longest 3 hours of your life, but you'll get through it in the end, it's not going to kill you. And I remember getting about 10 minutes into the film though, and just loving every second of it. I was transported to the world of Middle-earth, and I just thought it was so brilliant, and I loved watching that first Hobbit film in the cinema, and then that got me to go back and rewatch Lord of the Rings films properly, and then I fell in love with them, and now I think the Lord of the Rings films are some of the best made films of all time. I mean, they're not in my top 10 favourite movies, but they'll probably make my top 20, especially Return of the King, and probably Fellowship of the Ring as well, and I do love Two Towers, but I don't know if it'll be my top 20, maybe top 30, but still nonetheless, you get the point I'm making. I now think that the Lord of the Rings films are some of the best made films of all time, some of the best made fantasy films of all time as well. They are perfect examples of how you make fantasy cinema just so enthralling and so exciting. And, I do think that the Lord of the Rings trilogy is up there as some of the best trilogies of all time, like the Godfather trilogy, the original Star Wars trilogy, and so on and so on and so on. I just think it's amazing what Peter Jackson did with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I think it's amazing as well. Not as amazing, but still amazing what he did with the Hobbit trilogy as well, especially when you see something behind the scenes and you see how he kind of got ill making the second two Hobbit movies. And yeah, I still think they turned out great. I know a lot of people have problems with the third Hobbit film, The Hobbit, the Battle of the Five Armies, but personally, I love it, and I love it because of the director's cut. Honestly, if you haven't watched Peter Jackson's director's cut of the third Hobbit film, do yourself a favour, because it makes the film 10 times better. It really does. In the theatrical cut of the third Hobbit film, there's this whole bit with the goats, where Thorin and a bunch of the dwarves get on goats in the middle of the big battle at the end of that movie, and it isn't really explained in the theatrical cut, but in the extended edition, in Peter Jackson's director's cut of that movie, there's this whole fantastic chariot scene with the goats, which just makes that whole bit just make sense, and it just makes the whole film so much better. Honestly, there's so many bits in the director's cut of the third Hobbit film which make it just such a better movie. It really, really does. And I know some people also have problems with the Hobbit films as well, because the Hobbit book is quite a small book from what I've heard, and they extended it into three-hour movies, and obviously got the extended editions as well. But for me personally, it doesn't bother me, because I'm not a Tolkien fan. I never read the source material, so I'm watching the movies for what they are, and it doesn't feel overstretched to me. It doesn't feel like they've got a premise and overstretched it. It feels like its own thing as well, but then it also feels like it's adjacent to the Lord of the Rings films, and I just love that about them. You watch watch the Hobbit movies and they feel like the one thing. They have this great energy and a great pace to them, and I just really enjoy watching them, particularly because of Martin Freeman and Bilbo Baggins. I love that so much, and I think that all the other performances are great, and Howard Shaw's scores in the Hobbit films as well, fantastic and so underrated. And you've got Benedict Cumberbatch to voice the Smaug, you got the whole goblin stuff in the first film, the second film. You've got Lake Town, the third film, the big battle. You've got, Billy Connolly showing up as a dwarf as well. It's great in my opinion. I love it, especially the director's cut of the third Hobbit film. And I love though how they also feel like they're connected to the Lord of the Rings films as well. And I think that the extended edition, which is the only editions I've watched Lord of the Rings films, are amazing as well. I love them so much, which is why I'm a bit reserved with the new Lord of the Rings show, The Rings of Power, because it kind of feels like they're cashing in the whole Lord of the Rings idea, and I don't really want them to. I don't really want Lord of the Rings to be like Marvel, or even like Star Wars, to be honest. I love Star Wars, it's kind of like my first big love, but even now I can recognise Star Wars has become a bit of a cash grab. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, by the way. Everything, all the big franchises nowadays are cash grabs. Get over it. These people online go, well, Star Wars is bad because it's owned by Disney. Yeah, so is Marvel. Yes, it's made for profit purposes, but, newsflash, everything else in the world is nowadays. No one makes a big blockbuster with the exception of not getting any profit. That's what big blockbusters are made. People want money when they make a big blockbuster, so that's the point. So, I understand why this series is being made. But at the same time, though, I don't want it to be a cash grab like Marvel, like Star Wars, and like some of the franchises have become, even like the Jurassic franchise, which I was a huge fan of the first two Jurassic films and Jurassic World as well. But then now it's just, it just feels like they're cashing on it for the sake of doing so. It's kind of like, well, we need a bit more money, let's go into this recognisable IP, and I don't really like that about it. I'm looking at this new Lord of the Rings show, and if it's fantastic, then that's great, because it won't ruin the reputation of the Lord of the Rings movie. But if it's not good, then it will sour some of the reputation of the Lord of the Rings movies. You might watch Galadriel in the Lord of the Rings films, or in the Hobbit movies as well, if you like them as much as I do. You might watch her in those films then, and go, oh god, they kind of ruined that character in the Rings of Power TV show. I mean, I'm not saying they will, I'm just saying hypothetically, that's what could happen. And so, that's what I'm kind of worried about. I know some people kind of thought the Hobbit movies ruined the reputation of Lord of the Rings films, but I don't think they did. I don't think they did ruin the legacy of the Lord of the Rings movies. And I'm worried that this new TV show will, though, because it's not Peter Jackson doing it anymore. I understand why it's not Peter Jackson, but at the same time, though, even though I thought he would never return to it, he was offered to return to it. He was offered to come and help with his new show, and Amazon was all for it and everything like that. And he said, well, if you give me a script, I'll see what I think of it, and then might join us, something like that. I'm paraphrasing, and there's an article from the Hollywood Reporter, and then apparently they never gave him a script. So look, Peter Jackson could have been involved in the show, and I'm not saying his involvement would have made it better, clear for some people, even though Peter Jackson directed the 3 Hobbit movies, it just weren't for them. But at the same time, though, it doesn't feel like the Lord of the Rings I know and love when I watch those trailers. And I'm watching the trailers for the Rings of Power, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm not feeling this as the Lord of the Rings that Peter Jackson, did all those years ago. I'm not feeling that it's that same Middle-earth world. And I want it to feel like that, though, because otherwise I ask the question, why does it have to be Lord of the Rings? Why can't this just be another fantasy genre TV show? Don't be wrong, when I watch it, if it does feel like Lord of the Rings, I'll go, okay, I understand why it has to be Lord of the Rings, but at the moment I'm not getting that from the trailers. That's all I'm saying. I'm only talking about the trailers now. I'm not talking about any bit of footage or anything else. I'm not, criticising whether it feels like Lord of the Rings before I've even watched it, because I don't know that for certain. Trailers can be misleading sometimes. But at the same time, though, the trailer is the only indication I've got at the moment. I'm watching those trailers and why does this have to be Lord of the Rings? I'm not feeling like it has to be at the moment. And I think that's kind of a bit of a disappointment, just within the trailers. And yeah, because the Lord of the Rings films are kind of so close to my heart now. So the Hobbit movies as well. And I don't want my thoughts on those movies to be tarnished with this new TV show. That's what I'm saying. And I don't understand quite yet why it has to be Lord of the Rings. Why does the show have to be Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power? And also, why they called it Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power? I understand why they called it that. It's a recognisable IP. people are going to go watch it because it's Lord of the Rings of Power. You're going to get a certain demographic of people, me included, who are now going to go watch the show because it's called Lord of the Rings of Power. But I'm just... I'm a bit reserved on the fact that it's called Lord of the Rings, and it hasn't felt like Lord of the Rings from the trailers yet. But fingers crossed it will do when I watch the show. But also, one of the reasons that I'm not excited for the show as I want to be is because in the trailers, I've had no indication of what the story is really about. Okay, I understand Sauron is coming. I understand that the orcs are coming from this place we don't really know. The orcs and Sauron are coming. This evil is coming to the people who live in Middle-earth. But what else is happening? Because that's not going to be the only thing, especially if the show's 20 episodes, which I have heard it is. I can't say that for certain, but I have heard that this show is 20 episodes long, just this first series, and apparently they've already started production of series 2, pre-production anyway. I don't know, they might be filming already, but still, unless you get the point of making. Obviously, they're planning this to be a multiple series TV show, so there could be a bit more than that. And I'm not getting that from the trailers. Like, you watch trailers of House of the Dragon, and you learn, okay, there's always people who want the Iron Throne. Which, by the way, on the side note here, I'm not too fond about that in House of the Dragon. The fact that they're still going about the Iron Throne. We had 8 seasons of Game of Thrones when they're going about the Iron Throne. Can we not be on to something else now in the Game of Thrones world? But still, nonetheless, if you watch the House of the Dragon trailers, you know they're talking about the Iron Throne. And there's kind of this like brotherly bond that's being broken, or kind of brotherly war. There's always different plot lines going on. You see dragons in that trailer, you get a bit of an indication of what House of the Dragon is going to be like. At least I do when I watch the House of the Dragon trailers. Haven't got that from Lord of the Rings of Power trailers. And by the way, I'm comparing House of the Dragon to Lord of the Rings of Power quite a lot at the moment. But they're both fantasy genre TV shows which are going to be airing simultaneously. I mean, House of the Dragon starts first, and I think Rings of Power will be ending later than House of the Dragon will. But still, nonetheless, there will be a good chunk of time when they're airing alongside each other. Like, in the UK, House of the Dragon will come out on Monday, and Rings of Power, I think, it's going to come out on Friday in the UK on Prime. So there's going to be a period in time when they're coming out at the same time, and that's great in my opinion. Especially if both shows are great. If both shows have top-notch writing, which I hope they will, fingers crossed, then, you know, I'm all for that. I love the fact that we're going to get these TV shows at the same time, especially if they're good. Fingers crossed, touch wood. But still, nonetheless, though, that's why I'm comparing both, because it's gone about the same time. But I'm not getting an indication, back to what I was saying before, I'm not getting an indication of what the story is in the Rings of Power trailers. Like, I'm watching it and going, okay, Sauron's coming, the orcs are coming, right, what else? Just how that Game of Thrones all over again, okay? In Game of Thrones, you had the Night King coming, you had the Army of the Dead coming, okay, they're coming from the north. That's what basically Game of Thrones, I mean, they've got all the squadron to do the Iron Throne as well, but it sounds very Game of Thrones there. So you want evil coming, and yet the people are worried about it. At the same time, though, all the people in the world of Westeros were squabbling. That's what Game of Thrones plot is like, and that's what it looks like the Rings of Power plot is like as well. That's what I'm getting from the trailers. I don't think it will be like that, but that's what it's looking like from the trailers, and I'm not loving that. I'm not loving the fact that it doesn't look that different than Game of Thrones did. And I loved that in Game of Thrones. I loved the whole Night King build-up. I thought that was fantastic. Even though it had such a disappointing payoff, I loved the way it was built up. Especially in the season 7 when the wars broke down. Like, whoa, my god, this is amazing. But Rings of Power at the moment, you look at the trailers, and one of the shots in the trailers, which was great by the way, is all these orcs running through the forest. I'm like, great shot, looks really well done, really well put together, that shot, looks really well crafted. And the orcs, I love the fact they're not CGI, which is one of the things which is kind of... When I look back in the Hobbit films now, by the way, I didn't love the fact that the orcs were CGI, but still, I love the Hobbit films nonetheless, just wanted to add that in there. But back to what I was saying about Rings of Power. The orcs aren't CGI, that shot looks brilliant. But, why is it in the first series? Like, don't be wrong, if that shot happens towards the end of the first series, and there's always build up to that one scene and that one shot in the show, then I'll love it. But if it happens in the first couple of episodes, I don't know if it had the same effect that it would have if it happened later in the show, because the great thing about when the wall broke down at the end of Game of Thrones Season 7, there was all this big build-up to it. And I don't know if we're going to get that from Lord of the Rings of Power. It almost feels like Amazon want to have their own Game of Thrones. Like, after Game of Thrones came and went, it feels like all the streamers are trying to have their own Game of Thrones in some sort of way. Netflix kind of did that with The Witcher. I know The Witcher was based on its own thing, but if you're someone like me who hadn't ever, read a Witcher book or something like that, or played the Witcher game, I'm looking at The Witcher and kind of going, okay, that's Netflix's kind of version of Game of Thrones. Prime now got that with The Rings of Power. Disney Plus are going to have that with Willow, and again, I know Willow is kind of like a spin-off of a film from the 80s with the same name, but still, when I'm looking at that, kind of going, I bet this is only happening because of Game of Thrones. And at the same time, though, HBO, who produced Game of Thrones themselves, are kind of having their own Game of Thrones again. They're having House of the Dragon. It seems like everyone's trying to cash in on the success of Game of Thrones, which is fine. It's completely understandable again, but at the same time, though, I don't want Rings of Power to feel like Game of Thrones. I want it to feel like Lord of the Rings. And I'm afraid it's going to feel a bit Game of Thrones-esque when it shouldn't really. I'm not sure what to make of the show yet. I'm not sure why they're doing it at all. Like, that's my big question at the moment. Why is it Lord of the Rings? Why are they doing this show? And I dare say we're going to get the answer. I 100% guarantee we will. Okay, I don't 100% guarantee because it is Amazon and, they are kind of money grabbers, but still, nonetheless, I about 95% guarantee that we're going to get a definitive answer why this has to be Lord of the Rings, why this has to be Lord of the Rings, why Lord of the Rings Rings of Power has to be Lord of the Rings, why are we getting this show. But I'm not getting that from the trailers, and I think that's a bit of a shame. And also, the trailers haven't hugely impressed me. Like, I thought the first trailer of Lord of the Rings of Power wasn't brilliant, to be honest. I thought it was a decent tease, but not a great tease like it should have been. Like, even so, I'm not that excited for Black Panther Wakanda Forever because it's a Marvel Studios project, and more often than not, the disappointments for me. But even though I'm not that excited for Black Panther Wakanda Forever, you watch the latest trailer for the film and you go, wow, that looks incredible. I mean, I don't know if it will be, but you get the point I'm making. The first teaser trailer for Black Panther Wakanda Forever, a film I was a bit pessimistic about, you watch the first trailer for that movie and go, that looks brilliant. Fingers crossed it is. But I didn't get that from the Rings of Power trailer. I didn't get that from the first Rings of Power trailer. And then the second trailer was a bit better, and then the Comic-Con trailer was great. But it still didn't blow me away. And I wanted that from the Rings of Power trailer, especially the amount of money that's been thrown into the show. And even though visually it's gorgeous, Jay Bonier's directing, and I bet it's going to be brilliant because he's directing, and I bet the direction will be fantastic. And also, even though the costume design looks brilliant, the production design looks fantastic, and it does look like the actors are giving it all. You've got Moyford Clark playing a young Galadriel, and she was brilliant in the British horror film Saint Maud, which, by the way, you haven't checked out. It's a great howling horror movie, which is really, really well done, and she was brilliant in that. I'm really excited to see her performance, and she was great in the show, and all the performances are fantastic, and the diversity is one of the things I'm really excited about. I really, really am. But it's not feeling Lord of the Rings to me yet. It's not feeling Lord of the Rings to me. And from someone like me who holds the Hobbit movies and Lord of the Rings movies so close to my heart, especially after realising how brilliant, and I mean brilliant, those Lord of the Rings films are, and how good those Hobbit films are for me. I want this show to be just as brilliant. I do. But I'm worried that it won't be. That's all I'm saying. And I have no connection to Tolkien whatsoever. I have no connection to the source material, so I can't speak on whether it looks similar to what he would have envisioned. I don't really know that sort of stuff, but I do feel there's a lot of fans online who are just simply disliking the show for the sake of it. Like, I'm honestly getting a bit sick, by the way, and this is a bit of a side note, but it is also related to what I'm talking about now. I do also feel like fandom nowadays is so obsessed with being negative about things, and it's really exhausting. It happens with Star Wars, it happens with Marvel. I mean, that's kind of the popcorn that gets so black, because I say a lot of bad things about Marvel as well, but at the same time, though, you get the point I make. Whenever I talk about Marvel in a negative way, I always say, well, if you love it, that's fantastic. But nowadays, it seems like it's everyone's, game to try and get people to be negative about everything coming out. Honestly, the amount of negative videos and criticising videos and whatnot about Rings of Power out there at the moment is ridiculous. It really is. And the amount of negative videos out there about Star Wars at the moment is ridiculous. The amount of negative videos out there about Marvel at the moment is ridiculous. I'm negative about Marvel, but if I'm negative about Marvel, I'll make one video or 2 videos out at most. Probably not even that. I'll make about one video, really, talking about how I didn't like that one Marvel project. Then guess what? I'll move on to something else. I'm not one of these people online who make video after video after video after video after video after video after video talking about how much they dislike something. Get over yourself. Stupid. It really is. Like, one of my favourite YouTubers right now is John Campion. I know if you know who he is, you know who he is. He's a great YouTuber. I don't always agree with everything he says, and sometimes I do think he's a bit egotistical, but I really enjoy watching him. He said something recently about film fandom nowadays, which I completely agree with. Where are the men? It is disgusting what fandom has become. It really is. And it's just, that's another reason it's making me less excited about Rings of Power. Because regardless of how good the show is going to be, there's always going to be those people who go, well, it's alright. Like, this show might be literally the best piece of television ever. But there'll be some people online who just won't accept that because they can't let go of the ego, and they'll go, well, it was okay, but it's had all these problems to do with woke. And by the way, I hate that word woke with a passion. That is one of my least favourite words ever. The term woke is just one of the most annoying words in the English language. I don't even know if it is in the English language. You get the point I'm making. But yeah, there's going to be some people who just dislike it regardless of how good it is or not, and that's fine. Those people, I hope they have an amazing life. But it's just making me bored of getting excited about these shows sometimes. And so, my excitement for the Rings of Power is kind of like my excitement for the Andor TV show. I want the Andor TV show, the next Star TV show, coming out on September 21st. I want that to be amazing. But I'm struggling to get excited about it anymore because there's still going to be a loud minority of the fandom who just dislike it for the sake of disliking it. Get over yourself. Just be a bit more open. If you don't like it, that's fine. But then also celebrate the fact that other people do. Celebrate the fact that we have all these fantastic things coming out of the moment. Celebrate the fact that we're having all these Star Wars TV shows. Celebrate the fact that we've got House of the Dragon coming out. Because I've seen some people be negative about that as well, which is really annoying. Celebrate the fact that we have Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power coming out. You know, I don't like the end of Game of Thrones. That's fine. But I can't wait to see what House of the Dragon beholds. I really can't. I hope it's fantastic. And if it's not, I'll make one video talking about how I disliked it. Maybe 2 at the most. But then I'll move on to something else. Because I'm sick of all this fandom that's just constantly negative all the time. Be positive about something. And all these people who just make video after video after video just trashing on the new Lord of the Rings show is so depressing. Be excited about it. And I'm excited about it, but I'm not as excited about it as I want to be. And that's one of the other big reasons as well, because of film and TV fandom nowadays, because of geek fandom nowadays, which is just so stupid. Honestly, every single time there's a bit of diversity in a TV show or film, or they have a powerful female lead in the film, whatever, you know, there's people online who's like, okay, it's going to be bad. No, just get over it. Get a bit of diversity in this show. That's fine. I'm excited to see how actually these different ethnicities are going to be, you know, explored in this new show. I'm excited about that. And it's like the same thing happened with Prey, the new Predator film recently. People just disliked that from the trailer because the main character of the film was a female, was played by a female. It's like, get over yourself. It doesn't matter. If the film is good, it doesn't matter whatsoever. It doesn't even matter if the film's bad. You know, I'm not a fan of Captain Marvel, but I don't care whatsoever about the female protagonist. I don't. My problems with Captain Marvel, I think it's a bad made film, but I think it's a badly made movie. But anyway, get the point I'm making. Went a bit of a tangent there. But this is one of the reasons I'm just not that excited for Rings of Power. Because regardless of how good it's going to be, or regardless of how bad it's going to be, this is going to be that loud minority of the fandom, though, which is just constantly trashing on it. I reckon it's going to be fantastic. But that minority of the fandom, even though it's a minority, it's still a loud minority, and they're still going to be trashing on it regardless. And it's boring right now. I hate using that phrase, but it is getting tedious and boring. Just the amount of fans that just constantly shit on new genre entertainment. And that's one of the reasons, that's one of the big reasons I'm not excited for a lot of Rings of Power as I want to be. And also, I don't know the story for the show yet, and it isn't screaming Lord of the Rings to me. But I do want to reiterate, I hope this show is brilliant, and I'm excited to see it. I'm just not excited to see it as I want to be. And by the way, so we can hear a drill outside there. Some guys just decided to start drilling as I'm recording this video today. So there you go there. So there's a bit of sound interference, but still nonetheless, I am excited for the show. Fingers crossed it's fantastic, and fingers crossed it's sensational. It's one of the best pieces of TV I've seen in recent years. And I want it to be so good. I really do, because I hold that Middle-earth saga close to my heart. You know, with the Hobbit movies and Lord of the Rings films. But I don't know. I'm tempering my expectations right now because I haven't loved what I've seen of it so far. But I'm going to tell you now, when the show gets released on September the 1st, I'm going to sit down to watch it and leave all my baggage at the door and just hope for the best. I'm going to sit there wanting it to be the best TV show I've ever seen. And like I said before, fingers crossed it is. But for now, that's why I'm not as excited for Lord of the Rings of Power as I want to be. Anyway guys, are you excited for Lord of the Rings of Power? Or are you a bit iffy like me on what you've seen on the show so far? Whatever your thoughts on Lord of the Rings of Power, please let me know in the comment section below. Anyway guys, thank you as always for watching, and if you haven't yet, please click down below and subscribe on this video, and look forward to many more both film and series come very soon on this channel. See you guys again soon, but bye for now. Bye!